All right, we're live, and it's just a couple minutes before 2:30, and I actually have some unfortunate news. My co-presenter today is sick, so we will not be able to go ahead with the live conversation as we had planned. So we do have a backup plan, so I'm going to be getting that rolling in a couple minutes. But I do apologize. Oh, excuse me. But, you know, this is life. Sometimes life just happens to you, and you've got to make backup plans. Unfortunately, we had one in place. So I hope everyone's having a really good day, really good Tuesday. So Tuesday afternoon here looks like it might be getting ready to rain, which would actually be kind of nice. Our trees could use some rain here in North Carolina. And so I'm going to go ahead and just get going. Today, the webinar is about relationships. It's about marriages. And, you know, I've given relationship webinars before, but what really got me thinking today was I hear the same complaints over and over from women, married women. And I just couldn't figure out what's going on. Why is it that your husband never takes the initiative to plan anything? Why would a husband not be willing to go to marriage counseling? Those sorts of things. And then I started thinking, and I thought, you know, I bet there are things that all men say about their wives, you know, common complaints, because really, I mean, you know, these things go both directions. And so I actually got in touch with Jayson, Mair, a fantastic relationship coach actually in Australia, and got the scoop from him about some of the common complaints men have about their wives. And so we decided we would sit down today and hang out on Google and just talk about, you know, go back and forth. And I'd say, okay, so this is what I hear, and tell me, why would a husband say this or do this or not say this or do this? And then he would ask me the questions and I would answer from the female perspective. Unfortunately, we do not have him today, but what we do have is a recorded and edited version of our rehearsal plan. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen so that we can you can see the live screen. Excuse me, screen share. Let me just 1 minute, I want to pull up the video so that you can all get a chance to watch it. All right. So I'm going to be screen sharing. Here we go. With you. This is Jayson and I talking about the 3 most common complaints we hear from men about wives, and the 3 most common complaints we hear from wives about husbands. I hope this is really informative, and you know, take notes, see if you've got any questions, and I'll be monitoring the chat. So let's go ahead and launch. So I'm Elaine.Bayless. I am your empowerment coach, and I'm very excited to announce that with me this month is Jayson Mair. And Jayson is the founder and CEO of JMC, Jayson Mair Coaching. He founded JMC to be able to assist people to build meaningful, happy relationships with proven techniques, ideas, and support. Jayson has spent almost half his life learning and testing what works and what doesn't. He is personally trained with and learned from some of the foremost experts in the personal growth industry, like Brendon Burchard, Tony Robbins, as well as any inner voice experts like Blair Singer and psychologist writer Angela Bradley. His testimonials speak volumes. Hundreds of people from around the world have moved past procrastination, self-sabotage, limiting beliefs, and self-doubt to be all they truly can be, thanks to Jayson and his unique brand of relationship coaching. He found that quality relationships were the key to all happiness, especially the relationship we have with ourselves. Jayson has a down-to-earth approach that enables each client to feel secure and comfortable every session. His commitment is to help each of his clients achieve their full potential. He enables his clients to find whatever or whomever they've been searching for and become more confident and true to themselves. So thank you very much, Jayson, for being here.
Thank you.
And just so our viewers know, it's it's a Wednesday afternoon in the middle of summer for me. And what's it like for you?
It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's about 6 degrees in the middle of winter.
Yes, all the way around the world. So,
and today, God for technology.
Yes, exactly. The miracles of technology. So today we're talking about relationships. And one of the reasons I partnered with Jayson is I hear women have the same complaints over and over about their husbands or their partners. And I figured the same was true. And so I wanted to, I reached out and talked with Jayson, and he was telling me, he hears some similar things from women. Women have, or men have very similar complaints over and over about their wives and their partners. And I thought it would be interesting if we sort of explored those ideas and gave, kind of some insight into what is your other half thinking? What is your spouse thinking? What are they thinking about? What are they concerned about? And so we're basically going to kind of go back and forth. I'm going to throw out a question that I hear a lot, and then Jayson's going to give us his take, and then he's going to throw out a question that he hears a lot, and I'll give you my take. So without further ado, the first question I've got is basically, why is it that men never plan anything? They never plan any dates. They never plan any family outings. They never actually plan anything. And you think, we dated and he planned stuff then, but now it's like, what do you want to do for our anniversary, honey? And wives want to know, why can't our husbands plan things anymore? So what do you think? Anything?
Yes. As I said, yeah, very, very good question. And as you mentioned earlier, that at the start you plan to do things and stuff, but it seems to me that sometimes when people get together, they're all excited and they want to do things and they plan things and they go out and so forth. And then after a while, once they've been together, they get to know each other a little bit better and what works and what doesn't, which you think that'd even be more of an advantage to plan things. But also, there are times where, and it's not necessarily in the relationship you're in, but sometimes in previous relationships, they go to have planned things in the past and they haven't been to the expectations of their previous partner, or it hasn't, a lot of times I don't think a lot of guys even think really. They think, oh, look, that'd be nice, let's go out and do this. And it might be bowling when they realize that their partner just hates bowling. And I think sometimes it's a bit of, oh, do I or don't I? And if I don't do anything, I'm going to look bad. But if I do something, what if she doesn't like it? So they just sometimes just go, I don't think I'm going to do that at all. Because a lot of the times when I speak to clients, I say to them, have you thought about this? Oh, I've thought about doing stuff, but I don't know, if it's not the right thing, she's not happy and she doesn't look like she's having fun. So it's either do it or don't do it and be in the bad books, so they just don't do it at all. And that's where I've got to sit there and say, let's get into the communication. Sit down and say, look, I'd like to plan things, but I'm not quite sure if you'd be happy with them and that. Look, and even just rattle off a few things, and then at least you've got that for the next 6 to 12 months. Okay, well, we know that you might want to go and see, I don't know, a footy match or a baseball game, or she might want to enjoy a travel away to San Francisco or Sydney or somewhere like that, and at least get to know them. If you're afraid of planning something and the reaction, I think you've got to just get to know your partner more. Ask questions. Even if you've been there together years, you change, you grow. You need to know, you've got to keep working on it, I feel.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I think that's an important point for women to think about is, are you putting your partner in a no-win position, by being critical? So Jayson, I know you had a couple questions. Do you want to ask me one of those and then I'll?
Yes. All right. sometimes you'll get a lot of male clients that say they don't. My partner doesn't understand me. She doesn't understand when I explain things to her, and I told her, and she has no idea. It just doesn't get me. What do you think that would happen?
Well, I was wondering about that. The question of doesn't understand me, and my question for. I think a couple things go on there. And I think one thing that happens is we don't pay attention. Wives, oftentimes, we just don't pay attention. And one of the things I know, the first year of my daughter's life, when she was an infant, I would ask myself, almost every day, I asked my husband, how was your day? Twice. And the first time I would ask him because I knew I was supposed to. And so I was just doing it to be polite. And as soon as he started talking, I just stopped listening. And then later, after my daughter was asleep, I would be genuinely interested and I'd ask him again. And he would tell me again. And finally, one day he's like, you asked me that like every day, like 3 or 4 times. So I think one problem that we have is a lot of times if you have kids, it's very easy to ask a question and then just gloss over, just stop listening. And I think that can be a trap to fall into where we aren't listening, or we just think, it's going to be the same old thing, right? Like a lot of times you may hear a husband complain about his job, and you've heard it all before. You've heard it all before every day for the last 3 years. So you kind of just shut off. And so I think that's part of it is are we really trying? And then the other thing I would say is, if you want to make sure that your husband knows you understand them, the question would be, to use the technique of mirroring. And basically, so he says something, you say, okay, you let him speak his piece, and then you repeat it back to him. And say, so, for example, I hear you saying your boss is treating your coworker unfairly, and that bothers you because you think he's going to treat you unfairly too. Is that right? And then you have to be quiet and let your husband tell you whether or not you're right. Because a lot of times I think we assume we know what they mean and we don't check in. And that's what I would say. I mean, that's what I hear women doing. And we don't take the time to try to understand. Or when we do, we don't take the time to check in with us and see, do we really understand it? That's sort of what I see happening. That would be my thought on that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
And that was what you were getting at with the question, right?
Yes, yeah.
Cool.
I think too, sometimes, as you said, like asking what you do at the end of how was your day at the end of the day? You, like both, you've been all day running around doing stuff, and you get home and it's kind of a meaningful conversation. And if you're a mum and you're juggling the kids and trying to put them to bed and get dinner ready and everything else, it's like, I'd really like to have this conversation, but I'm doing 5 things at once, and can we have it later on? And then by the end of the day, when you sit down to ask it again, he's like, I'll just rattle it off, not listening.
Right, exactly.
But I like your check-in. I think that's perfect, because you're going, because then they hear it and go, oh yeah, sounds kind of windy. Kind of, yeah, look, don't worry, just having a wine.
Well, and it's a good communication tool, and just the quick little check-in of, so are you saying da-da-da? Because that's what I'm hearing. And I think that really helps men, because it gives them the chance to say, no, you aren't understanding me. So one of my next questions about, one of the next complaints I hear oftentimes is the lack of initiative. Over here in America, it's the chore wars. We call it the chore wars. And it's this idea that who's going to do the chores? And I hear over and over, well, I got to do everything around the house because my husband doesn't do it. It's like he sees he looks at the dish full of dirty dishes, and he won't do any of them. How could he not see the mess? So I have my own thoughts about that, but what do you think? I mean, what do you think men are thinking when they're looking around a messy house and not doing anything about it?
I've actually even heard this complaint as recently as yesterday. Yep. And so it's a perfect question. Again, it seems to be, and this is where I love us doing this right now, because it's really, you may agree with me here, is it is really about communicating. And I think after we've been together a while, we take advantage of each other and we just go, and I've always said that at the start of a relationship, it doesn't have to be the first date or the first couple of dates, but when you start to build something together or move in together, it'd be a good idea to just sit down and go, look, and set some boundaries and not rules as such, but say, look, there are times that I'm going to need a hand, and if I put the dishes on, how about you help out? And just work with each other. It is a team effort, and it's not this, the old school where the wife stays at home and stays in the kitchen and everything else anymore. It's now, let's do it together. So, sometimes, and this client I was talking to yesterday was saying that he'd get home, clean up all the kitchen and stuff, walk into the lounge room, sit down, and the wife would walk in and she'd start cleaning up again. And he's going, what are you doing? Oh, it's not. Look, you've left crumbs over here and you've put this cup out of place, and it's like, okay, well, how do you want me to do it? This is what I said. I said, well, how about, go, okay, look, I do that, and I don't do it very much because when I do it, I see you do that. So how would you like me to do it? Because I want to be able to help. But if I'm doing it, and then I sit down and you come in and do it again, defeats the purpose of me doing it in the first place. So why am I doing it? So again, it's that communication. You don't work out at a gym at the start, for 3 months and then think you're going to stay fit for the next 5 years. You've got to, if you get a car, you've got to get it serviced every 6 months. You've got to check in and make sure that it's all running well. And we don't do this with our relationships. And we sometimes need to sit down and go, hey, babe, I want to help, but, you tell me to do that, and then I come in and you're doing it after me. And it's like, why did I do it? So, yeah, I think the initiative sometimes is there, but for some reasons there's certain times where something discourages them to do it, or they think, oh, why did I do that when she wasn't happy with it? So then I do it. And then there's the other side where some are just lazy. And that's, again, back to the start of, setting some boundaries at the start and saying, look, if we're going to move in together, I like to do this and you like to do that. Let's work as a team, because you're there. You want to be there long term, forever and ever. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to happen if you're cleaning up after him after he's just cleaned up.
Yes. I see that myself. I do see that in relationships. So I think that's great, talking about setting those boundaries and I think even periodically revisiting the boundaries,
Yes.
Because that's an important thing too. You move in together and then 5 years later, maybe one of you is a stay-at-home parent, and that changes everything.
Yeah.
Or you get
and don't get me wrong, it's not always the case of the male doing something and the female coming to do it. Sometimes there's a lot of males that are very, rigid and like things. I had a client whose husband used to be in the army and hasn't been in the army for 20 years, but likes everything, precise and everything else. And she won't touch it because, but there's that, again, communication. Say, look, I like you cleaning up, but I just like everything where it is. So can you just, and if they go, okay, would you prefer to do it? No, I'll prefer to do it. Great. Then they know they don't have to do something they're going to get into trouble for. So again, we have mouths, we have ears, but we're not using them as well as we should be. we're afraid. If you're afraid to communicate, you then have to work out, how can I communicate to them? Should I do an email? Should I write a little handwritten note? Should I do a video and then post it on in their email? Who knows? But something where you can communicate what you're saying.
Yes, I think that's so key. And especially with the boundaries piece too, I always encourage people, set a boundary and then just let it play out, because people will say, oh, well, I set the boundary. I said, I'm not going to do your laundry if it's on the floor. And then he ran out of clean clothes. And it's like, well, he's an adult, right? Especially nowadays, people get married much later. I mean, most of us have lived on our own before we were married or before we were living with somebody. We know how to do laundry.
It's like the old, I'll put the laundry basket there and hopefully he'll put the washing away. No, he's going to walk straight over that and go to do what he's want. So if you say, babe, if you don't put this in there, you won't have clean these tomorrow for work.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and I have said this to clients, sometimes you have to treat us men like 5-year-olds. You have to be a little bit like, okay, babe, I love you, but I can't do it all. And if you don't put these in when they're there, or you put them in, they're not going to get out of the machine and hop on the line to dry. So you need to do that as well. So, yeah.
Yep. So, and then...
what was your question?
Well, I see the next question that you had is actually very similar. It was sometimes men feel like they do their best to do the right thing and help out, but it's never enough.
Yes.
Just going to take a minute here. Just going to take a minute to pause and make sure, see if we've got any chats or questions. Okay. Not, so we're just going to go right back into our screen sharing and enjoy. Hear from men a lot?
Yes.
So, and I think that goes very much with what we've been talking about. And to me, I think a lot of this comes down to what you said, the communication, but the other piece is criticism. And I'll tell you, my mom told me many years ago, she said, if you ever want someone to help you do a job, don't criticize the way they do the job. And which is brilliant. And I get it, because I know sometimes your partner screws something up. He bleaches your jeans, or he breaks your favorite china because he was washing it. My husband's actually broken like 3 measuring cups, plastic measuring cups. He's actually snapped the handles clean off while he was washing them by hand.
Are you going out with the Hulk?
You're right, We have quite a joke about that. So, I understand that sometimes there's, people screw up. But on the other hand, I think, what we really need to think about is it worth doing it yourself? Because if you're going to criticize somebody, you're basically saying, no, I don't want you to do it. And I think you need to just kind of let it go. And, like dishwashers, everyone has their own special way of loading the dishwasher. And maybe you can get 20% more dishes in the dishwasher than your husband can. But if he's going to load it and run it, then really, is it worth arguing over? So my advice to wives is, if you really want your husbands to help out around the house, especially if you want them to do a chore that you've already criticized them for doing, ask them to do the chore and say, I promise I won't criticize you. And just start out and say, look, I really need you to, start loading the dishwasher every night. And I know that I've criticized you before, and I want you to know right now I'm sorry, and I'm never going to criticize it again. As long as it gets done, I will be happy. And that way, it's like what Jayson was saying. Your husband now knows he's not going to get in trouble, right?
Yes, definitely. And the other thing too, and you said this earlier on, we've all lived by ourselves, or in our lives before we got together, and we do have expectations of how we like things done. I mean, I've had clients that, will only hang washing up with, if they're blue underwear, they'll put blue pegs on. And if they've got black socks, they've got to be black pegs. And they freak out when their partner does all coloured, and it's got to be like, but they're not you. So, be happy that they've done it. And if they're not, maybe do the washing with them one day and go, Bub, I do this. And I go, yeah, I know that annoys me. And it's like, but that's how I do it. Well, is it a compromise, or you're just going to have to allow them to do what they're doing, or do it yourself? Not being rude, but, we do. We get comfortable in what we like and we don't like. And sometimes when we're together, we do pick up on their mannerisms or the way they do things, and that works. But I think, again, that's, communication. Sometimes working together, as you said, maybe let's stack the dishwasher together and go, I'm curious, I always see you stack the 6 plates on top of each other, but they don't seem to be clean. Can I ask where to do that? I'll give you a quick antidote that I heard a few. I'll try to make this short. A mentor of mine told me of a story of why we do things, and he said that he met this girl, and when she used to cook a roast, she would cut a quarter of the meat off and throw it in the bin, and then put it in the oven, cook it. And he's like, well, why do you do that? Oh, Mum used to do that. Oh, okay. So he met the mum, and he said, oh, your daughter's a great cook, but when she cooks a roast, she cuts a quarter of the meat off and throws it in the bin. Oh, it's supposed to make her cook better because my mum did it. Okay. So he meets the grandma, and he says, Grandma, I love your granddaughter, I love your daughter, but when they cook a roast, they cut a quarter of the meat off and throw it in the bin. I don't know why they do that. Why do they do that? And the grandma says, oh, silly boy. They don't know. I used to do it because I had a small oven and a small tin. It was the only way it was going to fit in the oven. So there are weird, strange intricacies that we do that we have no idea why we do. But if you don't get to understand why they do, it's going to frustrate you. And you're going to go, why do you stack it that way? Don't do it. Don't.
Yeah.
So either let them do it, but don't criticize, or you might have to do it yourself. But communicate that. Get to understand each other.
Absolutely. It's about the communication and the nice thing is, like you said, you've mentioned doing the task together, and that is a great thing because you do get to hear these little hidden stories about, well, that's the way my mom did it because of XYZ, and that can bring you closer. Part of the reason that we fall for the people we fall for are their little unique quirks. And we can lose appreciation of that very easily.
Some of those unique quirks could be the really annoying things many years down the track.
Right, exactly. It was so cute when you did it when you were 20, and now that you're 40, not cute anymore.
Yeah, got to pull those pants back up over your underwear. I'm sick of seeing your butt crack. Seriously, That's not a good look.
Well, so my final question, and this is kind of a more serious one. I hear this from a lot of women, and we'll be talking about they're struggling in their marriage, they're unhappy in their marriage, and I say, well, have you tried marriage counseling? And what I hear is my husband won't go. Every time I bring up marriage counseling, he says, absolutely no way. And I don't really, to me, if my husband came to me and said, oh, honey, we really need to see a marriage counselor, I'd say, okay, let's do it, because I would be really worried and I want to know what was going on. And so why would a man say no to that?
Very good question. Very good question. Look, my experience, even with men coming to see me, it's a very, I will have more rebookings or cancellations from men than I do my female clients. And look, I can put it down. I would normally put it down and say, look, a lot of the times it's ego. Now, when I say ego, I don't mean that in a bad way, like, no one's going to tell me what to do. But it's more, I think that there's multiple reasons. Sometimes it can be he doesn't want to hear what he already knows, that he may have some things he needs to work on, and he doesn't want to be told because he doesn't want to sound like he's being scolded by his mum when he was a kid. And these are things that even some clients have admitted to me after a while when they've said, look, I really felt awkward about doing this, but I'm here now and I enjoy it. Some also think, oh, well, what's he going to do? He's just going to say, well, you're right and I'm wrong, and, I need to do this, and they feel they have to change. And change is leading to my last question as well, but I'll explain that in a moment. But yeah, it is a struggle because they need to be able to be open. And I do think sometimes it is part of our makeup that, we're guys and we do have to be strong, and, we need to make it work, and we don't need to go see anyone. We can just sort it out ourselves. And that's where, I've had to, in a way, I've had to say no to some clients more than I've taken on, because I've had to say, look, I'm not going to give you the answer. I'm going to work with you to get the answer. But you're going to have to leave. I know this, and I know what you're talking about, and I don't need to be told. And ego at the door when you come in. It's just two guys. We're just going to sit here. We're going to talk. I'm not going to be all suit and official, and you're going to be, downtrodden. I'm here to support you, and you are with your clients. And once they think they get that understanding, they can sit down and it's not so heavy and hard, it's good. But straight away when they hear marriage counselling, oh God. So I'm going to have to sit in the room with this guy and he's going to go, oh, I should do this and I should do that. And it's like, I think sometimes, and one of them said to me a few months ago, it's like being sent to the guidance counsellor or the principal's office at school. I'm going to sit there and say, I shouldn't do this and I shouldn't do that. And they just don't think it works. So I think they need to get an understanding of what it's about and why the wife is suggesting that. My other look on it, and some people like this, some people don't, is if he's not willing to communicate with a marriage counsellor, it's because he's not communicating with you. He's going to communicate with anyone. He has to get to a point where he's got to go, look in the mirror and go, dude, seriously, you can't keep doing this. You've got to do something. Otherwise, she's a great girl. She's going to be out of my life if I don't do something. Step up, and that's where I think a lot of us guys, and I had to do it myself to get to where I am today, is take a reassessment of why things are not working. And because, you go through a lot of relationships and go, the one thing that sticks is me. Mm-hmm. So maybe I need to do some work on me to make sure the next one or whatever it works. And if you're not at that point, you've really got to sit down and really dig deep inside and say, well, why are you doing it in the first place?
I think that's great. I don't think women see, I definitely think that women do not see it as this, like in getting in trouble. And I think that's part of the confusion is we think, well, don't you want to save the marriage? But I think, that's really interesting to think about. Men see it as more of they're going to get in trouble or they already know. So, yeah. What would you say to a wife? I mean, how would you say a woman should bring it up?
Well, as most people know, but I will say it anyway, the line, we need to talk, is probably not the best way to go about it.
I know.
But if it's at a point where it's like that, I mean, sometimes it's those quiet times where you might be sitting next to each other. Maybe they don't sit next to each other very much. That's the reason why they don't really relationship counselor. But, maybe if they're lying in bed, depending on how strained it is, it's trying to find a time where, you may be just laying in bed before you go to sleep, if he hasn't just nodded off straight away, and just go, look, I really want this to work, and I know you want to work, so it's not scolding. What would you say if we went and saw, a marriage counsellor and seeing if they could, assist us in some ways? because a marriage counsellor is never going to save the marriage. We've got to save the marriage. We've got to do the work. But a marriage counsellor, like a coach, like we do, is we're there to guide and work with those people to give them the tools and strategies to go, hey, will this work? Let's try and work on this, and let's focus on that and see what it is. I mean, it's sometimes we are hard, and I think this is for both sexes. It's hard. We struggle with ourselves, with how we feel about ourselves, and if we stuff up something or do something wrong, and then when we're doing it and we're affecting the one that we're with, I think sometimes we even beat ourselves up about that a little bit more, and we've got to go. But if they're at a point where they're just blatantly not going to see it, well, again, you can give as much counselling to them as one. They've got to get to a point where it's either we work this out, or it's not going to work out at all. Mm-hmm. And it does come back to the reason why they got together in the first place as well. So, but if they've already gone past the marriage part, it's like, let's do the best we can. And I think our rate over here is the same as in America, that the divorce rate over here is like 53%. That's half, and that's divorces. They're the ones that went to the effort of getting married and then separating. There's a lot that don't even bother getting married and they separated. Where I am here on the Gold Coast, we've got the highest rate of divorces. It's 52.6% of first marriages and 56% of second marriages end in divorce, just on the Gold Coast alone in Australia. It's the highest in Australia. So we really need to, do the work to make it happen. Maybe it's too easy to get divorced. Maybe.
I don't know about that. I know a couple. I think I know 3 or 4 women right now getting divorces, and it's not easy. At least not in North Carolina.
No.
Don't know about Australia.
Yeah, no, I think it's about the same everywhere. But yeah, I don't know. It is quite a struggle. But even if you're getting into we've mentioned a few tips today that if you're getting into a relationship, get to know them. Even if you move in with them before you get married, you'll just get to see how they live and how they're going to be, because you're going to see that every day.
Yep.
It's easy for us to clean up the house and make it look good for 1 or 2 nights, but, when we go over there unexpected and there's a pile of rubbish and all of a sudden you've got to see the signs and get an understanding of what's going to be, because it's hard if you're just living by yourself. You run around getting everything done and working and stuff. So then you got someone else involved in your life. So, but I will throw you the one last question I had, which was, it feels like she wants me to be like someone else. She'll always say, oh, Dana's husband down the road is always like this. Why can't you be like him? And why can't you just dress better and stuff like that? Why do you think that happens?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And I think part of it is, I think women get frustrated, and I want to start out by saying, women, that's not kind. And comparing people to other people, it's very critical, and it doesn't really help the situation. Now, I think sometimes we might do that because we think, oh, he just needs a concrete example. Like, instead of me saying, oh, honey, you need to dress up more, you say, Joe always looks great. You should dress like Joe. So I think part of it comes from this idea that maybe we're being helpful by saying, oh, this is an example of what I'm asking you to do. But the problem is that we're not communicating it as effectively as we could. And, we don't realize that's hurtful. I mean, you don't want your husband to look at you and say, well, why don't you look more like so-and-so from The Office or so-and-so from the TV show? I mean, you'd be devastated. And I don't think we realize that men have feelings too. And And they want us to love them for who they are. And so I think that's something important to think about, is instead of comparing your partner to someone else's partner and saying, well, I wish he was more like this, or I wish he did more like this, or more like this. Think about, okay, well, but I picked him. You know, I'm in this relationship of my own free will, and, you know, try to build on his strengths. So, you know, maybe you have a husband who's never going to, you know, he's never going to wear anything but jeans, right? Or maybe he's going to wear shorts all the time. And, you know, when you were dating, you thought, oh, how funny, it's freezing cold outside and he's in shorts. And now that you're married, you're like, why are you always in shorts? So you want to remember, you know, I picked this person and he's happy. And then think about, too, what is it you want? You know, if you're going to a dress occasion and shorts aren't appropriate, you might say, look, you know, I love you. I love that you wear shorts all the time, but it would really be more appropriate if you had a nice pair of dress slacks. But don't compare him. You know, don't bring up someone else. Because that is, like I said, that's very unkind. And I think it's very easy when you've been with somebody for several years to forget to be kind and to forget to be courteous. Because you just kind of take that person for granted. You already know them, they already know you, and so you just say things, or you say, oh, could you get me something? And you don't say thank you, we don't say please. And we just don't think about it. We don't think about the fact that, you know, we really do treat our families worse than anybody else. And kids are the best example of this. Kids treat their parents like dirt, and it's because they feel safe at home. So, you know, that would be my thought, is I think a lot of times women, I think, just get frustrated, and they aren't seeing an emotional reaction. And so they just go for something really harsh like that without thinking about how hurtful it could be. And I think the other side, you know, the more positive spin on that would be that sometimes women just think, well, maybe he just doesn't know. He just needs an example. And so we're trying to provide an example of, you know, this is what I mean. But you got to be clear in your communication. And you also want to make sure you're affirming him. So, you know, you don't want to always be nagging, like, why are you always doing this? Why are you always doing this? And you want to say, you know, I think it's great that you do this, that you like to wear shorts all year round, but it would be more appropriate if you wore pants to this event. So.
Good point. Like it.
Thanks.
Why can't there be more like you, Elaine?
Oh, my husband would agree.
It's true. It's more about the approach, and you know, I've even sort of nicknamed it the renovator's delight, because it seems to be that, you know, some people get in a relationship with someone just because they're there, and then they want them to look, that old, you know, worn down beach house to look like this mansion. And it's like, well, why didn't you just get the mansion? You know? It's you know, if you want them to, you know, if that's what you like, but you want them to just, as you said, wear a pair of slacks or something. Just, I think it is the approach, and just, you know, I love you, bub, you're looking good, but let's just cover up the legs for this dude, can we? You know, something like that. So yeah, no, you were spot on with that. So thank you. That's very good advice.
Thanks.
Very good advice.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because I think we've talked about a lot of different issues, but what it always comes down to is, you know, I think what I see is we want our partners to read our minds, and we think we can read their minds. And it's just not true. Exactly, right? It's just not true on either side. I can't read someone else's mind, and I can't expect someone to read my mind. And it's just better if right? What was that? Wait, I'm picking up something. And it's just easier if you are just flat out honest and say, you know, maybe you just err on the side of saying something that you think he already knows, you know, and both of you will be happier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, very, very true. And I think the key of everything we've discussed is the communication, as I was saying before. We have these and we have these, but it's, and you said it earlier at the start, is sometimes we've got to check in. We've got to check in, see how you go, because, you might be in a relationship and someone might start another job, and because we spend a lot of our times in our employment, we sometimes take on the characteristics of that environment, and we might pick up on things that we like and different things, and we might change a little, and it's just checking in to see how things are going. And if you just, get into and I don't think we do enough of this, is like a relationship workout where we check in and go, okay, how are we doing? Just sit down and talk, don't go to bed angry, just talk it out. Sit down and, even if you've got to go away each other for an hour or two and just clear your head and then come back and, say sorry and go, look, how can we do this better? It sounds, I said this to someone a few months ago and they said, oh, it sounds a bit airy-fairy. And I said, look, you got a better way of doing it. And they went, no. And I went, yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. It sounds airy-fairy because if we all did it, it would make things a hell of a lot easier. But, instead of yelling and screaming at each other and throwing stuff around, and, it gets nowhere. You start, you get into a disagreement, you start raising your voice, and that person raises their voice, and that's not going anywhere. You start raising the voice of the neighbours, yelling back to be quiet. It's just not a good look, and it just you've really got to get to the point of, if you can't communicate, because at the end of it all, we're together 70, 80 years, there's a lot of other parts that we get together for just aren't there anymore. Communication and talking is the only thing we've got left, and really good hugs. So if we can't have that, well then we're in trouble.
Yep, I agree. It's all about the communication, and it's all about letting go of this, letting go of what you think and just asking those questions. So. Well, thank you.
So, Elaine, you had an offer you wanted to offer a few other people here.
Oh, yes. So I would love to talk with you if you are, if you feel like, oh, yeah, that's exactly the problem I'm struggling with, or if you feel like, I'd like to hear more about that, I would like to talk to you. So I actually have set aside some time in my calendar, and if you want to go to my website, it's talkwithelaine.com. And you can schedule a breath of fresh air. And it's a 1-hour conversation. We're going to talk about whatever. You will set the agenda. And if you want to talk about, your marriage or what you're struggling with, I'd love to talk to you, listen to you, help you think through and process some things and give you some ideas on how to move forward. And so that's what I'm encouraging you to do. If you found it today helpful or you have follow-up questions, go to talkwithelaine.com. And Jayson, I think you also had an offer.
Yep, similar thing, because, you got the choice of a wonderful woman or, a good guy to work with, whoever you feel that you've you've connected with. If you want to help in any of the, relationship issues or anything you want to discuss at all, if you jump across to www.JaysonMair, JaysonMair.com, and down there you can book. There's a booking button there. Pick a time there, and we can have a Google Hangout or a Skype call, or if you're in Australia, we can go by cell phone as well, and just sit down and have a chat. And then if you decide that you want to work with myself or Elaine, and have some sessions with us, and that, so we can get you back on track. By all means, at least it will give you a bit more one-on-one connection with us, and find if we're able to help you, because we will just discuss like we've done today and just get a bit of an idea of your situation. And if we can help, great. If we can't, I might say, look, I think Elaine will be better for that, and I'll pass you over to Elaine, and vice versa. And we want to help, because, as I said before, the divorce rate in both our countries is quite high. We struggle enough. You've got all the pressures around the world that, with employment and pay rates and, kids and, family pressures. I mean, I do a lot of my clients, their relationships are even with family members, interfering in-laws, relatives that are not, you've got to set a boundary for relatives to stop interfering, all that sort of stuff. That's what we do, because everything is connected to our relationships, and if we can't get them right, well then, what are we here for? So, jump across, click mine or Elaine's button, and let's have a chat and see if we can help you guys.
Yeah, I echo everything Jayson said, and exactly, call one of us, talk to one of us. We've got pretty much the whole globe covered in terms of time zones, so there's no excuse. All the way.
Summer or winter, we've got it covered.
Exactly. Summer, winter, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, it's all good.
Morning, nights, who's counting?
All right.
Thank you very much, Elaine, for having us on today, and I hope everyone got a lot out of what we've discussed, and it's been great. Thank you very much for the time too.
Yeah, thank you for joining me and for giving me, some great insight into what is going on with the other half.
Yes,
so,
definitely.
Thank you so much. And
no worries.
That'll be it.
All right. Well, as I said already, that'll be it. Hope you guys had a great day and got something really good, got some good insights, and I'll be signing off.